This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We try each day that you're entertained some, that you learn some, that we're learning as well. And thank you for listening. We're going to start off the year with 5 stories that we're following today. So bear with us as we walk through these 5 stories. First, Wall Street was set to rebound this morning after a 4-day slump that marked the end of 2024. The last several days of the year were relatively awful after a very good year in the markets. The futures pointed up way up this morning. Now they're nearly up, and we'll see how that goes the rest of the day. Second, this is on the car side, the auto side. There's starting to be return to some discounts in the auto purchasing world as people are buying new cars. Discounts on dealership lots lift car sales is a Wall Street Journal headline this morning. So just to give some context, before the pandemic, the average amount of used new cars sold a year was about 17 million a year. They haven't reached that level since. They were about 15,500,000 last year, expected about 16 million in 2025. We'll see how it goes. I, as an aside, bought about the most boring but solid new car in America late last year, which replaced a Porsche Macan with a Tesla NX350. A great car, but an unexciting car, but it is what it is. A couple more notes here. General Motors was up 48% last year. Ford Motor Company was down 19% last year. We'll see how those go this year. Later on in the podcast, we'll give you a couple of the stats on EV makers, Lucid and Rivian as well. Third, AllianceBernstein, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs all had very solid years in 2024. Goldman ended the year up nearly 49%. Wells Fargo, which really had a rebound from a couple tough years, finished up 42% last year. Fourth, healthcare services investing is fairly flat. Biotech investing has been up as of late. And just a couple background stats on healthcare. We'll go through a couple of them very quickly. Really 4 stats. First, colonoscopies, right about 15 million colonoscopies a year in the United States. Second, spine surgeries, about 1.3 million spine surgeries each year in the U.S. Third, the leading cause of death in the U.S. remains heart disease, 700,000 plus tests a year. And fourth, the number 2 cause of death in the U.S. remains cancer-related deaths at about 600,000 plus a year. Fifth story we're talking about this morning, one of my core goals for 2025, with a separate podcast on this, is to simplify the number of efforts that I'm engaged in and be more deeply focused on those handful of efforts rather than as much all over the place. Another point that we'll make, and this I'll give as a PS, in the EV world, Rivian was down 43% last year. Lucid Motors finished down 28%. Tesla, in contrast, excelled after a rocky start of the year, ended up really high, especially as Elon Musk, I wanted to say President Musk, got behind President Trump, just had this acceleration in the Tesla stock, and we'll see how that goes. Finally, PS, believe in yourself, the world will follow. That's a quote from Twitter from Money Quotes. I like that quote. Believe in yourself, the world will follow. I think that's very, very true of leadership and a lot of things. Thank you for listening to this kickoff version for 2025. 5 stories we're following this year or this week. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast.